Close your eyes and let yourself drift back in time to the windswept coast of Maine in the year 1847. The Atlantic Ocean stretches endlessly before us, its waves rolling in ancient rhythms that have remained unchanged for millennia. Tonight we follow the story of Samuel Morrison, a lighthouse keeper whose quiet dedication illuminated the darkness for countless souls seeking safe harbor. The Pemaquid Point Light stands 79 feet above the rocky coastline, its white tower a beacon of hope against the endless gray of sea and sky. Samuel has tended this light for 17 years now, since he was a young man of 25, fresh from the fishing boats and eager for steadier work. The lighthouse has become more than his occupation, it has become his calling, his sacred trust with the sea. As evening approaches this October night, Samuel begins his familiar ritual. The sun hangs low on the horizon, painting the water in shades of amber and rose gold. He climbs the winding iron staircase that spirals up through the center of the tower, his footsteps echoing softly in the enclosed space. Each step is measured, deliberate. He has climbed these stairs over 6,000 times, and each ascent feels both routine and reverent. The lamp room at the top houses the great Fresnel lens, a marvel of French engineering that arrived just 3 years ago. Before its installation, Samuel tended a simpler arrangement of whale oil lamps and reflectors, but this new lens transforms a single flame into a beam visible for nearly 20 miles. The lens itself is a work of art, hundreds of precisely cut glass prisms that catch and bend light with mathematical perfection. Samuel's hands move with practiced certainty as he trims the wick and fills the oil reservoir. The whale oil burns clean and bright, though he knows that soon, perhaps within his lifetime, new innovations will replace even this. He has heard rumors of a substance called kerosene that burns more economically, and there are whispers of something even more remarkable, electric lights that require no flame at all. But for now, the whale oil serves faithfully, as it has for generations of lighthouse keepers before him. As darkness settles over the coast, Samuel lights the great lamp. The Fresnel lens springs to life, casting its powerful beam across the water in a steady, rotating pattern. 3 seconds of light, 2 seconds of darkness. This is Pemaquid's signature, as distinctive as a fingerprint. Every lighthouse along the coast maintains its own unique pattern, allowing mariners to identify their exact position, even in the thickest fog. From his position in the lamp room, Samuel can see for miles in every direction. To the south, the lights of other beacons twinkle in the distance. Monhegan Island Light, Marshall Point Light, and on the clearest nights, even the faint glow of Portland Head Light, nearly 40 miles away. Each of these lights represents another keeper, another guardian standing watch through the night. They are part of an invisible brotherhood, connected by their shared vigil against the darkness. The lighthouse itself tells the story of Maine's maritime heritage. Built in 1827, it replaced an earlier wooden tower that proved insufficient against the fierce Atlantic storms. The current structure is built of local granite, quarried from the very cliffs it stands upon. Each stone was carefully selected and fitted by master masons who understood that this tower must withstand not only the battering of wind and wave, but the relentless passage of time itself. Samuel descends to the watchroom, where he maintains his logbook, a careful record of weather conditions, ships sighted, and the operation of the light. Tonight's entry reads, October 15th, 1847. Clear skies, moderate wind from the northwest, light functioning properly. Sighted schooner, Mary Catherine, bound north at sunset, flying Boston colors. Each entry is brief but thorough, part of an unbroken chain of record-keeping that stretches back to the lighthouse's first night of operation. The keeper's house, attached to the base of the tower, provides modest but comfortable quarters for Samuel and his wife Margaret. She tends a small garden where hardy vegetables grow despite the salt air, and keeps chickens in a coop, sheltered from the wind. The isolation might drive some to loneliness, but Samuel and Margaret have found peace in their solitary life by the sea. They measure time not by clocks but by tides, not by calendars but by the changing patterns of migrating birds. Margaret often joins Samuel in the evening as he tends the light. She brings him coffee in a tin cup, still steaming despite the cool air, and they stand together, watching the beams sweep across the water. Sometimes they spot the lanterns of fishing boats returning to harbor, or the masthead lights of merchant vessels following the coastal trade routes. Each light represents lives and livelihoods dependent on Samuel's faithful maintenance of the beacon. The shipping trade has transformed coastal Maine over the past decades. Lumber from the Great Pine Forests travels south to build the expanding cities of Boston and New York. Ice, cut from inland ponds and packed in sawdust, makes its way to southern ports and even to the Caribbean, where it sells for its weight in silver. Granite from local quarries sails to distant construction projects, while fishing boats bring in cod, mackerel, and lobster to feed the growing nation. Samuel has witnessed the evolution of maritime technology from his tower perch. The sleek schooners that now dominate coastal trade have largely replaced the square-rigged ships of his youth. These newer vessels, with their fore and aft rigged sails, can sail closer to the wind and navigate the complex coastline more efficiently. He has watched steamships grow from rare curiosities to common sights, their paddle wheels churning and smokestacks trailing dark plumes across the horizon. But change comes slowly to lighthouse keeping. The fundamental duty remains unchanged since ancient times: to provide a reliable reference point for mariners navigating treacherous waters. The coast of Maine, with its countless islands, hidden ledges, and sudden fog banks, presents particular challenges. Samuel knows every rock and reef within sight of his light, every tide pattern and current that might affect a vessel's course. On foggy nights, when the light beam seems to reflect back from an impenetrable wall of mist, Samuel sounds the fog signal, a great bronze bell that rings every 30 seconds. The bell was cast in Boston by Paul Revere's foundry, the same establishment that created the bells for many New England churches. Its deep, resonant tone carries for miles through the fog, providing an audible beacon when the visual one becomes useless. Samuel recalls a night 3 winters past when the fog rolled in so thick that he could barely see the lamp room from the watchroom below. A merchant brig bound from Boston to Eastport with a cargo of manufactured goods became disoriented in the murk. For 6 hours, Samuel rang the bell continuously, while the ship's crew fired signal guns and sounded their horn, triangulating their position by the echoes and responses. When dawn finally lifted the fog, the brig sat safely at anchor in the protected water behind Pemaquid Point, less than a quarter mile from where the ship might have foundered on the granite ledges. The captain came ashore to thank Samuel personally, but the lighthouse keeper simply nodded and said it was his duty. This is the quiet heroism of lighthouse keeping. Countless disasters prevented, lives saved through vigilant routine rather than dramatic rescue. The seasons mark their passage around the lighthouse in predictable patterns. Spring brings the return of migratory birds, cormorants, guillemots, and puffins that nest on the offshore islands. Summer sees an increase in coastal traffic as the fair weather encourages longer voyages. Autumn storms test the lighthouse's construction and Samuel's resolve, while winter brings the profound quiet of snow-covered granite and ice-rimmed shores. Each season presents its own challenges and rewards. Spring storms can be particularly treacherous, as mariners eager to resume full operations after winter's confinement sometimes venture out before conditions are truly safe. Summer fogs can roll in without warning, transforming a clear afternoon into a navigation nightmare. Autumn gales bring winds that can exceed 60 miles per hour, making even the massive lighthouse sway perceptibly at its top. But winter holds its own special beauty and danger. Ice storms can coat the lighthouse lens in thick ice, dimming or completely obscuring the light. Samuel keeps a supply of warm water and cloth for cleaning the lens during such conditions, often making multiple trips up the tower throughout a single night to maintain the beacon's effectiveness. The bitter cold makes every task more difficult, but also more crucial. Ships in distress have little time to seek alternative guidance when winter weather closes in. Samuel's daily routine varies little regardless of season. He rises before dawn to extinguish the light and inspect the lens for salt spray or condensation that might reduce its effectiveness. Morning is spent on maintenance tasks, cleaning the lens system, trimming wicks, checking oil levels, and polishing the brass fittings that constant salt air tries to corrode. Afternoons are often devoted to outdoor work, painting, repairs to the buildings, or maintenance of the fog signal equipment. The lighthouse service provides Samuel with detailed instructions for every aspect of his duties, contained in a thick manual that covers everything from proper wick trimming techniques to procedures for reporting unusual weather conditions. But experience has taught him subtleties that no manual can convey. How to recognize the particular quality of light that precedes a sudden squall, or the way the sound of waves changes when a storm is still hours away. Margaret contributes her own expertise to their lighthouse life. She has learned to predict weather changes by observing the behavior of seabirds, and her garden provides fresh vegetables that supplement their supplies from the lighthouse service. She also serves as the lighthouse's unofficial historian, maintaining a detailed record of ships sighted, weather phenomena, and seasonal changes that goes far beyond Samuel's official logbook entries. Their isolation is not complete. The lighthouse service sends supply boats quarterly, and local fishermen sometimes stop to share news or seek shelter during storms. But for days or even weeks at a time, Samuel and Margaret may see no other human beings except as distant figures aboard passing vessels. This solitude has taught them to find companionship in each other and in the rhythm of their shared duties. The evening ritual continues as Samuel returns to the lamp room for his hourly inspection. The great lens rotates smoothly on its clockwork mechanism, which must be wound every 4 hours like a giant timepiece. The lens housing can be rotated by hand for cleaning or adjustment, but during operation, it turns automatically, driven by weights that descend slowly through the tower's center. From the lamp room windows, Samuel surveys his domain, the rocky coastline that extends north and south as far as the eye can see, dotted with the dark shapes of islands and the white foam of waves breaking over hidden ledges. This is among the most dangerous stretches of the Atlantic coast, where countless vessels have met their fate over the centuries. Native American legends speak of these waters as a place where spirits of the drowned still call out warnings to the living. The Pemaquid Peninsula itself holds layers of history that Samuel has come to appreciate during his long tenure. Archaeological evidence suggests that Native Americans inhabited this area for thousands of years before European contact. They established seasonal fishing camps along the protected coves and developed an intimate knowledge of the coastal waters that early European explorers struggled to match. Captain John Smith mapped this coastline in 1614, naming it New England and describing it as the paradise of all these parts. But Smith's optimistic assessment failed to account for the treacherous navigation conditions that would claim hundreds of vessels in the centuries to follow. The rocky coast that provides such beautiful granite for building also creates countless opportunities for shipwreck. Early colonial settlements in the area struggled with the dual nature of their coastal location. The sea provided transportation, trade opportunities, and abundant fish, but it also brought storms, isolation, and the constant threat of shipwreck. The decision to build a lighthouse at Pemaquid Point came only after decades of maritime disasters had made the need undeniable. Samuel knows many of the local shipwreck stories, passed down through generations of coastal residents. There was the merchant ship Angelique that foundered in 1794 with a cargo of European manufactured goods, her remains still visible at low tide just north of the point. The schooner Rising Sun went down in a winter gale in 1823. All hands lost, her fate unknown until spring tides revealed her broken mast protruding from the water. But Samuel prefers to focus on the ships that have passed safely under his watch, guided by the faithful beam that has operated without fail since he assumed his duties. Thousands of vessels have used Pemaquid Light as a navigation reference, from the great merchant ships bound for European ports to the humble fishing boats that work the local waters. Each safe passage represents a victory against the sea's relentless power. The technical aspects of lighthouse operation fascinate Samuel. The Fresnel lens system represents the pinnacle of optical engineering developed by French physicist Augustin-Jean Fresnel in the 1820s. The lens consists of multiple rings of precisely shaped glass segments, each calculated to bend light at exactly the right angle to focus the lamp's output into a powerful parallel beam. The entire apparatus weighs nearly 2 tons, but rotates on a bearing system so precisely engineered that Samuel can turn it with gentle pressure from his fingertips. The lamp itself burns through approximately 2 gallons of whale oil each night, supplied by the Lighthouse service from their depot in Portland. The oil arrives in wooden barrels marked with the Lighthouse's designation and Samuel's name. Each barrel must be carefully inspected for contamination or damage that might affect the lamp's performance. Pure whale oil burns with a bright, steady flame, but even small amounts of water or other impurities can cause flickering or smoking that reduces the light's effectiveness. Samuel has experimented with different wick configurations to optimize the lamp's output. The official manual specifies a particular type of braided cotton wick, but he has found that slightly different trimming techniques can improve both brightness and fuel efficiency. These small innovations are not recorded in his official reports. The Lighthouse service values consistency above individual initiative, but they represent Samuel's personal contribution to the art of lighthouse keeping. The clockwork mechanism that rotates the lens requires daily winding and weekly maintenance. The weights that drive the system descend through a shaft that runs the full height of the tower, their slow fall providing the steady power needed to maintain the light's characteristic timing. Samuel has learned to listen for subtle changes in the mechanism's sound that might indicate the need for cleaning or adjustment. Weather prediction has become one of Samuel's essential skills. The lighthouse's exposed position provides an excellent vantage point for observing atmospheric conditions, and his daily reports to the Lighthouse service include detailed weather observations that contribute to the growing understanding of regional climate patterns. Samuel records wind direction and speed, barometric pressure readings from his mercury barometer, temperature, humidity, and the characteristics of cloud formations. Over his 17 years of observation, Samuel has noticed subtle changes in regional weather patterns. Storms seem to be arriving from slightly different directions than they did when he first took up his post, and the timing of seasonal transitions has shifted by a few days. These observations contribute to a larger body of knowledge that meteorologists are beginning to compile, though the scientific study of weather is still in its infancy. The lighthouse's elevated position also makes it an excellent platform for observing maritime traffic patterns. Samuel maintains unofficial records of shipping movements that go beyond his required reports. He notes the seasonal variations in traffic, the types of vessels using different routes, and the apparent changes in trade patterns over time. This information provides valuable insights into the economic development of coastal Maine and the broader Atlantic maritime trade. Samuel has observed the gradual transition from sail to steam power occurring in real time from his lighthouse perch. When he first began his duties, steamships were rare curiosities that drew attention from local residents whenever they appeared. Now, steam-powered vessels represent a significant portion of the traffic along the coast, and Samuel has learned to distinguish between different types of steam propulsion by the characteristics of their smoke trails and the sound of their engines. The social isolation of lighthouse life has led Samuel and Margaret to develop a rich internal world of interests and activities. Samuel has taught himself navigation and celestial observation, using instruments provided by the Lighthouse Service for official duties, but extending his knowledge far beyond the required minimum. He can identify most of the major stars and constellations visible from his latitude, and has learned to predict tides and weather patterns by observing lunar phases and planetary positions. Margaret has become an accomplished naturalist, maintaining detailed records of the plant and animal life around the lighthouse. Her journals document the seasonal appearances of different bird species, the blooming times of wildflowers, and the behavior patterns of marine mammals that frequent the nearby waters. This information has proven valuable to visiting scientists who are beginning to study the ecology of the Maine coast systematically. Samuel has observed funspools. Samuel has observed at different times. Their small library contains books on navigation, natural history, and maritime law, supplemented by newspapers and magazines that arrive with supply boats. Reading has become an essential part of their routine, providing intellectual stimulation during the long winter evenings and expanding their understanding of the wider world beyond their isolated station. The sense of responsibility that comes with lighthouse keeping extends beyond the technical aspects of maintaining the light. Samuel understands that his vigilance represents the last line of defense between mariners and disaster. This awareness has shaped his character over the years, instilling a deep sense of duty and attention to detail that influences every aspect of his life. Main one is ensure that we have no last line with manning their daytail. Sleep comes in shifts for Samuel, as he must check the light every few hours throughout the night. Margaret often helps with these nocturnal inspections, allowing them to share the burden of constant vigilance. They have developed a system of alternating watch duties that ensures the light receives attention without requiring either of them to remain awake all night continuously. Even during his brief periods of rest, Samuel remains alert to sounds that might indicate problems, changes in the wind that could signal approaching storms, unusual patterns in the wave sounds that might suggest shifting weather conditions, or mechanical noises from the lighthouse equipment that could indicate the need for immediate attention. The business of lighthouse keeping involves considerable paperwork beyond the daily log entries. Samuel must file monthly reports on fuel consumption, equipment condition, and weather observations. He maintains supply inventories, requests for maintenance materials, and correspondence with lighthouse service supervisors. These administrative duties require careful attention to detail and clear, precise writing. The Lighthouse Service operates with military-like discipline and hierarchy. Lighthouse keepers report to district inspectors, who visit quarterly to examine facilities and review records. These inspections are thorough and demanding, covering everything from the cleanliness of brass fittings to the accuracy of logbook entries. Samuel takes pride in consistently receiving commendatory reports from his inspectors. The economic impact of lighthouse operations extends far beyond their direct cost to the government. By preventing shipwrecks and enabling safe navigation, lighthouses facilitate millions of dollars worth of maritime commerce annually. Samuel understands that his modest salary represents one of the most cost-effective investments the government makes in supporting economic development. The technology of lighthouse construction and operation continues to evolve, even as Samuel maintains his faithful watch. He has read about experiments with electric lighting systems and more powerful lens designs that may eventually transform the profession of lighthouse keeping. These innovations hold the promise of more effective navigation aids, but they also suggest that the traditional skills and knowledge Samuel has accumulated may become obsolete within his lifetime. As the night deepens and Samuel continues his quiet vigil, the lighthouse beam sweeps steadily across the dark waters, a mechanical rhythm that has continued without interruption for 20 years. Each rotation of the lens represents another few seconds of safety provided to mariners who may never know how their passage was aided by one man's dedication to duty. The stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns, the same constellations that guided mariners before lighthouses existed, the same celestial signposts that will continue to mark humanity's path long after the last lighthouse beam has been extinguished. Samuel finds comfort in this continuity, in his role as a small but essential link in the great chain of human effort to make the world safer and more navigable.
Tomorrow will bring another day of routine maintenance, careful observation, and quiet readiness. The lamp will be extinguished at dawn and relit at dusk. The lens will be cleaned and inspected. The logbook entries will be made with the same careful precision that has marked Samuel's tenure as keeper of Pemaquid Point Light. And as the first light of dawn begins to pale the eastern horizon, Samuel extinguishes the great lamp and watches the Fresno lens slowly come to rest. Another night of faithful service has ended, another small contribution to the safety of all who travel upon the sea. The lighthouse stands ready to begin another day in its endless vigil. Guardian of the coast, beacon of hope, silent testament to humanity's determination to push back against the darkness. The waves continue their eternal rhythm against the granite shore, and Samuel Morrison, lighthouse keeper, begins preparations for another day in service to the light.